This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. And Melinda, you've had a variety of topics going on, and a variety of things happening in your life.
Today's been an interesting day, that's for sure, rolling with the changes. I almost didn't make it, tooth broke in half, but I ran out, got it fixed. Thank God they could fix me in because we were meant to do this today. So,
wow. Okay. Well, we talk about this a lot on New Cleveland Radio, that life is a journey and things happen. And sometimes we look back and we go, why? Why did it happen? Or, hey, you know what? As bad as that was, it turned out to be very good for us. But you have a wonderful guest on today, and I've been reading her bio, and wow, we could do many different podcasts with her. So why don't you go ahead and
then we will do a series of podcasts. We'll see how you feel, Janice. But welcome, Janice.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So,
Melinda, Karen.
Yep, we want to introduce you. You own a company called My Angel Janice, and you are a certified end-of-life doula. So we want to know, and I'm sure the audience is like, what the heck is that? Maybe they've heard of a baby doula, which is a birthing coach, but you kind of work on the other end of the spectrum. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to doing what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As you are all aware, end of life is not a topic that many people really want to address or face. And my journey has been about 30 years in the making. I had my first child in 1992 and woke up one night after he was born with this stabbing pain in my neck and a little tiny pea-sized lump. So from there, asking many, many doctors over an 8-year span, what is this lump on my neck? Those who felt it would take blood and tell me, your thyroid levels are fine. You just need to stop eating so much and lose weight. Great. I'm doing Weight Watchers and high impact aerobics. So I don't know how else I could have made a change and, done whatever. In 1997, I gave birth to my daughter, second child. Lump was getting bigger. It was getting harder to swallow and breathe, and I still kept being told that I was fine. So in 1999, I went to a dermatologist 2 weeks before Christmas for an unrelated issue. And he took blood and he said that my thyroid levels were very off. I'm sending you to an endocrinologist. So what happened from there, within 3 days, I had an appointment with an endocrinologist. That was my first red flag of this is not going to be good. As he was feeling my neck, he made this sound. And it just sent my heart right into my stomach. So at that point, he told me to come back in 3 months. And if the lump hasn't gone away, we will take a biopsy and take it from there. So I waited 3 months, had the biopsy. It's stage 4A thyroid cancer. So I had this cancer growing inside my body for 8 years, never being taken seriously, being placated, being told I'm fine, and I didn't know any better. So I just thought that the lump growing across my neck was something else. I had no idea. Had surgery in April, have had a complete thyroidectomy, so I do not have a thyroid. My endocrinologist came and visited me. And I said to him before he left, you knew I had thyroid cancer, didn't you? And he said, absolutely. But I also knew that you had a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old at home. And if this was going to be your last Christmas with them, I didn't want them to only remember that. So part of me is somewhat grateful. And the other part of me is going, but you didn't tell me. You didn't have whatever, tell me. I need to know these things. Mm-hmm. I have 2 small children. I need to be able to plan. I need to know. So I get through all of that. I have all of the irradiated iodine and the scans and everything. In May of 2003, my mother is diagnosed with stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. on her 68th birthday. And so that journey with her was an 8-year-long labor of love, trailblazing, learning to find my voice, becoming a medical advocate and standing up, asking questions, demanding answers, not being placated. Those are the things that I learned from my own journey and that I was able to apply to her and her journey as well. There are so many different stories that I could tell. One that really stands out for my mom is that after 5 years of chemo treatments, she wasn't going into remission. So she wasn't eligible for bone marrow transplant because of her age. And she wasn't really eligible for much else in treatment. And she was actually allergic to the chemotherapy drug. So every time she had chemo, she had to have a couple of shots of Benadryl to counteract all of the rash that would just appear on her body. We were told that the only option that she had was a radioactive isotope called Zevalin, and that this would put her into remission. Because my main focus for her was treatment and getting her well and raising my kids and just juggling everything. I even had a part-time job. I'm a substitute teacher. I've been doing that for 18 years now. I became one because I needed a flexible part-time job to be able to still stay in the workforce a little bit, but also to have the flexibility of the schedule. When she had the Zevalin, it did actually put her into remission. Unfortunately, one of the side effects is acute myelogenous leukemia, which is what she developed. And within 2 years, she was gone. So she was born on May 12th, 1935, which was Mother's Day. And she passed on May 15th, 2011, which was also Mother's Day. So it took me a good 5 years with the grieving and trying to get myself back to a normal life and to be able to focus before I could even look at a picture of her without bursting into tears. I've also had other issues with family dynamics. I am the oldest of 4 siblings, and one sibling lives out of state, and my middle 2 siblings decided that it was too hard to watch mom decline, and they just stopped supporting us. They stopped coming. They kept the grandchildren away, which really killed my mother.
Oh, yeah.
She was the grandma to end all grandmas. And when she couldn't see her grandbabies, the number of times where I would hold her while she just sobbed because of that. Even when the priest came to give her last rites, the first thing she said to him was, "My children are still keeping my grandbabies away from me." And his response to her was, "That's not what you need to focus on right now. You're going to be taking a journey, and that should be your focus right now." But it was very, very hard to do. So,
Absolutely. So going through this piece of, not only your own cancer journey, which is how this whole podcast got started with my cancer journey, as you know,
yeah,
and then talking about the grieving process. We just had a podcast on about that, didn't we, Karen?
Right.
Talking about, grieving is a personal journey. It doesn't happen the way everybody thinks it should. Oh, 6 months, you should be better. A year, you should be fine. You should be moving on. Like you said, it was 5 years before you really could look at your mother's picture. So how did going through all of this push you in the direction that you're in, lead you on this journey for your profession?
well, I'm also a volunteer on the Patient Family Partnership Council at the Cleveland Medical Center, Acute Care, downtown main campus. And I've been doing that since 2007. And I got involved with that because I was taking care of my mother after she had had a surgery. And the nurses saw how well and what I was doing above and beyond for her, in addition to the healthcare staff, making sure that she was taken care of and had everything and anything she needed. I stayed with her for 4 days in the hospital during that period of time. I was looking, because I'm now in the third phase of life, shall we say, for something else to focus on, some other calling. And I'm always looking to others. I have done this my entire life. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. That's kind of been my thing, my role. And when I was talking with our volunteer director, I explained to her that I had heard recently, just before the pandemic, that an end-of-life doula was actually a thing, that there were people becoming certified that were non-medical. You don't have to have an RN degree. You don't have to be in the medical field. People like me who have life experience, many, many years of life experience, can do this. And so she had reached out to some of her other contacts within the hospital system. And in February of 2020, found out that there was a college where you could actually take this coursework online. Before that happened in January, I was actually researching different companies where I could actually do a one-on-one training. And I was all set to drive to Michigan in the beginning of March and take a 4-day intense interactive program, which because of the pandemic didn't happen. So being able to do this IAP college course online at my own pace, it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to start this particular journey. Because I have the hands-on experience with a lot of things. I don't know everything and I will never know everything, but my particular area of expertise is in caregiving, is in family dynamics, it's in medical advocacy. And I was able to go through and finish the program in 5 weeks, become certified through them. And I really want to make a difference in this field because our society is so death phobic.
It is.
I used to be death phobic. I used to be terrified of it. But after going through everything with my mom and myself, I have a new perspective and a new respect for this line of work. And it is just so needed. It is needed in all of our communities, our LGBT communities, our Black, our Hispanics, our Asian communities. Nobody is getting out of this alive.
True.
And the reason that I named the company My Angel Janice is because that's what my mother always told everyone. She said, I would not be alive today if it was not for my angel Janice. So that is one of the other reasons why I'm doing this and named it this, because it is in honor of my mom.
Absolutely. So explain to somebody listening what a end-of-life doula does.
Well, it is a big umbrella. It's just like being in hospice or palliative care. As an end-of-life doula for me personally, I am non-medical, but I have very hands-on experience working with friends and family in caregiving and working with hospice and making sure that people's directive plans are in place. Now, directive plans include a will, which you can do yourself online. You can hire an attorney for a living will, which are done through many of the hospital systems or doctor's offices. Figuring out who do you want to take care of decision-making for you as a power of attorney,
Right.
for your medical and for your financial or durable, that's what they call it. I work with people to ensure that they have their I's dotted and their T's crossed in that particular form of paperwork. However, what I learned firsthand was, unless you have a discussion with your loved one about what their final wishes are different from a directive plan. Final wishes include, do you want a funeral? Do you want a traditional funeral if you are of a certain religious background? Do you want cremation? Do you want green burial? Do you want all kinds of, ways to dispose of your body? Those are decisions that have to be made, whether you make them or you don't talk to your family or your loved ones and have them just do it, which after someone passes, especially if it's unexpected, it's just not a pleasant experience at all. You need to have some kind of open, loving discussion, have something in place, anything, any kind of plan. And whatever final wishes plans that you have, just like your will or your powers of attorney, you can always change them. They are not set in stone. They are not going to be forever if that's what you want. You have that option. But when you don't have any plan in place, it's just really it's kind of selfish, actually, because leaving somebody with that job and that burden while they're grieving for you, there's better ways. There really are better ways. We need to take more responsibility and ownership for end of life.
Well, because
We
nobody
plan-
wants to think about their own death. so they
No,
don't
of
wanna
course
plan
not.
for it.
Of course not, but we plan for birth. Let's plan for death too. Let's be more conscious of what's actually going to happen. Birth, obviously, it's a joyous time. It's a wonderful time. Everybody's happy. And end of life, not so much. And nobody is getting out of this alive. So
No. So do you work with the so if I have directives that I want for my funeral and the kids are like, nope, I'm not, that's crazy. I don't want mom to have that. This is what I think we should do. Do you intercede? Do you get between the client and the family and say, look, this is what mom wants. You really need to think about following what her needs are, what her wants are.
well, I could be a go-between or a mediator in that realm, but that's not really a place where I would feel comfortable because it could turn into a legal battle really easily. And I am not a lawyer. I am not legally able to do something like that. Now, if you want to try and start those conversations with your loved one, mom and dad are in their 60s or 70s and they don't have anything in place, I would be able to guide you through a process like that to start those tough conversations.
Do you also help them prepare with the items that they own? So for example, they have lots of pictures or special books. What is there? I know you do something that has to do with legacy. Because you're going to be doing that at one of my cottages here where I work. But how do you work with them to dispense those items, to give them out, to talk about it, to hand it out to the people that they want to have it?
Thank you for asking. That falls under my Willow End-of-Life Educator hat. In December of 21, I became certified through this program that was started by two ladies in Canada. I am the first person in Northeast Ohio to hold the certification and the 50th globally. Now, there are 12 different presentations that can be done. The one that I'm doing for you this coming week is how to write a legacy love letter. Now, when you're writing a legacy love letter, it's a letter from your heart to someone either that you just want to give them a little special gift to read and to have and to hold for when you're gone. Or I was speaking with an attorney who has several clients who they have their regular will in place, but they want to have special items for certain family members. And the attorney suggested writing a letter to them to tell them that these items are for them. And that would fall under a heart will. So it's a heart will legacy love letter. That is something that I can help with. those are then considered legal documents because they're part of your package of what you want to leave and bequeath to your loved ones.
So do they have to be witnessed the same way or notarized the same way?
No, they don't have to be witnessed or notarized. It is just as if I was writing you a letter of, hey, Melinda, it's so great to see you today. I'm so happy that we were able to get together and, talk about whatever. And I want to leave you a special gift. That's basically what it is. And you're talking from your heart about why you love this person, the qualities, what you hope their life will be like, that you are sad that you might miss special moments, but always know that I am with you in spirit, that kind of thing. So those types of love letters are a special extra gift from someone. It's like when my mom was in her final phase, I found out after the fact that they could have taken her hands and made fingerprints on paper so that we could have made little art projects with that. I didn't know about it until after she passed because her passing was kind of quick. Her decline, she was talking 1 minute and then she was unconscious and passed.
Wow.
So, these are certain things that you don't think about because you don't know.
Right. But I think those types of things are so important because people fight over little things. So that's why I asked about the legal aspect to it. Does it have to be notarized? Because mom can write the letter, but if both kids want it, and there's no legal piece that says, hey, this is yours, that's documented with a notary or witness, can they still?
That
Does it
is
still
a
work?
question that would be addressed with an attorney, because it is very possible that those types of letters would be able to be included as an addendum with the will. But if it was not included as an addendum, it's up to you as to whether or not you're going to honor your loved one's wishes.
Right.
Now, I remember when my grandmother in the 70s said she knew she had a bad heart. She said she never knew what her last day was going to be on this earth. And she went around her house and she put little stickums on almost everything in
Little
her
stickums.
house that had our
That's
names on
funny.
it. And whenever she saw somebody, she would tell them, I have your name on a china cup. I have your name on a chair. And when she passed, there was some bickering among some people that said, oh, I really want that cup instead of that one. But for the most part, everybody accepted it because it was in her writing and she
Write the
went
stickers.
to the length of doing that.
I think it's really important. I mean, my grandmother told me, I want you to have this. She actually had me take it before she had Alzheimer's. So before she forgot,
Right.
said, why don't you take it now so you have it, which I did. I didn't take that much, but it was important to me to have it.
And writing a legacy love letter does not always mean about you're getting a physical thing other than that letter.
Right. It just could be whatever you want to say to them, right?
Correct. And some of these letters are written to fur babies. Some of these letters are written to deceased family members, but it's a way for the person who is seriously chronically ill or dying to leave a legacy in the form of a letter or in the form of fingerprints and making flowers out of them.
Well,
However,
no, I'm sorry, but it's funny. We do that with pets, don't we? We take their paw print when we put the dog down or the cat down, they do a paw print for you. Why would it be any different?
right. Well, these are things that, we don't normally think about. But the legacy love letter is a little bit more special because it is from the person's heart. It is a message that is directed to one person. So it is a very special one-on-one keepsake. And that's one of the reasons why we encourage people to go ahead and do things like that.
Well, and I love the idea of that. I remember when my kids were born. Now, if I can only find it, because I did write it, I wrote each one of them a letter when they were born. not because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to die tomorrow, though more people die in pregnancy than you think about it or than you realize.
Yeah.
It was more that moment, that feeling, you know, you think you're going to remember it all later in life, but not necessarily, right? I wanted that moment to be documented.
And that's like a little time capsule.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what these legacy love letters are. They're a memory, they're a sharing of a specific moment in time. And that is priceless. That is something that can't really be replicated. So
Right.
doing something like that is a very special gift for your loved ones.
It's kind of like I had my, not because I thought he was going to pass at the time, but he was getting older, my grandfather. We videoed him telling his favorite stories.
Yeah.
Growing up, you know, they were settlers in New Mexico, and they took them on horseback in 1907 out there. I mean, these are things that would be lost, right? If you didn't have those. And I
Right.
have them in his words, which is even better, right? So I can
Yes.
share that with my children who he never met.
Right, right. Well, and I know I live with my 87-year-old father, and I've been with him, it'll be 5 years this year. And I've heard a lot of the stories from when he was growing up because he wants to share them, and I'm interested in listening. He didn't want me to tape them though, so I said, okay. So they're up here and they're in here.
It's interesting because tribal cultures pass stories down. They
Yes,
repeat the same stories of their ancestors because part of them believes that keeps their ancestor alive by sharing the stories.
yes,
And we've lost a lot of that in our culture, the way we're so splintered, right? We have people that live all over the country. We have a lot of divorces, you know, mixed families, and we lose those stories, which is so important to who you are as a person and how you got to where you are today,
well, it's part of your legacy.
right?
It's part of where you came from, and it's part of future generations. And like you said, with technology and with everyone living everywhere and anywhere, family units are more fractured and have lost a lot of that closeness. So that is something that is a little bit sad in our culture.
Well, but you
Absolutely.
help filling that with what you're doing.
Yes.
So what other pieces to being the end-of-life doula? You help them with their legal aspect, making sure they have the paperwork, even if you're not doing the paperwork, and they have that connection. You're doing the legacy piece. You're helping them plan. Are there other pieces to what you do that you can let people know about?
I have helped family members plan their loved ones' funerals when the loved one passed before doing anything themselves. I've also worked with people to try to be their medical advocate. If somebody has to, you know, go to a doctor's appointment, I'm happy to go with them, take notes, ask questions. That's all if they are comfortable with that. I've also been working with folks who are just really trying to navigate this whole system, because our healthcare system right now is challenging. I will put it that way. It's
That was
always
nicely
been,
said.
it was always challenging. I've had my own horror stories other than what my cancer was. I have no qualms about going toe to toe with any doctor. I want answers to questions. I don't want to be placated, and I don't want anyone that I work with to not understand fully what is happening to them. What are their options? Why aren't there other options? You know, one of my best questions before I ever leave a doctor's office is, what else do I need to know? That is something that should always be asked, in addition to asking for the doctor's notes before you leave an appointment. Because if you go back for them afterwards, oftentimes you have to pay for them. You are legally entitled to have doctor's notes before you leave that office. And it isn't that big of a deal to ask for them. And it's more important that you understand what your journey is and what things are happening to you. I do know I've run across a few people who really just don't want to know. And you try to talk with them and they will not respond, they will not engage. And for those folks, I say a prayer, and I always tell them, if you are ready and when you are ready, I am here for you. The way that end-of-life doulas operate is we meet whoever we work with where they are. We leave our egos at the door. It's not our agenda. It's not our journey. My job is to help educate you, help guide you, help train you, help train your loved ones. What are the best ways for you on this journey to be able to function and have a decent part of your life? Because this whole process is a journey from start to end. And sometimes it's a real roller coaster. And we all know this, especially as caregivers, especially as folks who are supporting people who are at end of life. Because we don't just work with people who are dying. We also work with people who are perfectly healthy. So if I have a 45-year-old individual come to me and say, I want to put all of my wishes in place, I want to put it all together and have it ready to go and have options, great, let's do it. If you are already very, very ill and you're afraid to use hospice, I can step in and be a liaison, but you should always utilize whatever is out there that might help you do what you need to do and move on your journey.
How do you see yourself different from hospice?
I actually can give you more time. Hospice workers, I love hospice workers. They were instrumental when my mother's last week of life was going on, and I called them at 3 o'clock in the morning sobbing because I couldn't get a nurse to answer the call button. They were there for a certain number of hours. I actually can give you more time. So if you are vigilant, or if you are unsure about a document that you've received from a doctor or whatever, I can help you with research. I can help give you some respite time so that you can take a shower, take a nap, take a walk, go scream somewhere, have something to eat, whatever you need to do as the caregiver. That's what I can provide. That's what most end-of-life doulas can provide. But like I said, it's an umbrella. Some end-of-life doulas only want to vigil with people. So they'll work with a family for the last few weeks of that individual's life, and they will be there while the person is actively dying. That is one way that an end-of-life doula works. That is not part of really what I am focused on. I'm focused on more of the before. I want to make sure that people don't experience the hardships that I went through as the caregiver, not recognizing signs that things weren't going well, not having the support from another individual who had been through it to say, okay, we need to do a little bit of a reality check. I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, but this is really what's happening. And are you prepared? And what do we need to do to get you prepared? So
what I
Go
find
ahead.
amazing is that there are so many different hospice groups. Okay. And I know when my mother needed hospice, we went by the recommendation of somebody. Initially, it was terrible, absolutely terrible. We switched around in the 8 weeks that she needed the help, or we needed the help. But what I didn't like was that the group that we ended up with, they always felt like I already knew what to do. And her last medication of morphine, I called hospice and I said, I don't want to give this to her because I know she'll die in the next 24 hours. And they said, you know, one thing we can tell you is you are not killing your mother, you're making her more comfortable. It was the first time they told me that after weeks. And I stood there holding it in my hand, crying. And it's like, I need somebody to come be with me. Well, nobody came. My mother suffered a little longer than she had to because I didn't want to give her that last dose. I have worked with hospice groups here in Ohio since then. And I tell people, like, you look for a good doctor, look for a hospice group that's going to support your needs and your parent or your loved one's needs. You know,
Sure.
they're not, it's not a cookie cutter type
No.
of operation.
No, no.
Do you
But
feel that it's more families that call you or the individual who's now on their end of life journey?
more families are calling because if you're the individual and you're having a hard time facing that reality that, you know, this is
Mhm.
coming down to the wire, the families are usually the ones that are trying to help their loved one. So those are the ones who I work with more often than the actual person. But I do have a few people who have taken the bull by the horns, shall we say, and wanted to have everything all set and ready to go. They didn't want to burden their loved ones. They wanted to make sure their wishes were taken care of, from their directive plans to their final wishes. So it runs the gamut really as to whom, but my focus, because of my personal experience, is the caregiver, the adult child caregiver who's actually trying to juggle family and job and siblings if there are any, or if they are an only child. Sometimes cousins will be involved, but not always.
Mhm.
And then the other end of that spectrum is like me. I'm divorced, so I'm single. I do have 2 grown children, but what if something happens? You have
Right.
to have a plan B. And not everybody thinks about that because they just kind of assume, well, you know, they'll take care of it. Well, maybe they won't. I would have never thought in a million years that my 2 middle siblings would have abandoned us, but they sure did.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be prepared. Unfortunately, a lot of single middle-aged people out there really have no one to be able to carry out their final wishes. That's one of my new pet projects, is I'm trying to figure out how do we put something in place that helps those individuals who really have no extended family. I know that there are some attorneys who have been hired to handle those roles, but there's got to be something better. I just haven't found it yet.
It's very difficult because I know we get people, particularly dementia,
Yes.
individuals who were single, never married, their parents are gone because they're older, they have no
Yes.
relatives close by, and they end up in the hospital. Then they get sent to, you know, like a rehab, and no one can put them out on the street because it's not safe. You know, legally, we can't do that.
Thank
Now,
God.
what do? Right? You have to find somebody to take over guardianship. And usually that's the state. There are businesses now, companies that are guardianship
Yes.
companies.
But they actually have volunteer
They
guardianship
do have volunteer
companies.
ones.
You know, I can't imagine being a volunteer with that, only from the perspective of I understand the whole process and what is involved. I applaud people who are actually volunteering to do that, but it is not an easy task.
No.
And our whole system needs a little bit of an overhaul. And I wish that I had better answers, but I'm sure that at some point something will happen that we will have better services for those types of individuals.
Well, or we need to educate people earlier in life instead of
Yes.
waiting until they're 60, 70 years old, educating people like the person who might come to you in their 40s. You know, when my kids were born, that's the first time I put any sort of directives in order at all. Because I had, well, actually I did it with the first one, and then everything was subsequent children, never updated it, right? And then get divorced, and everything was still set. So when I got cancer, I had to make all of my directives right then,
Yes.
because I needed to make sure, I didn't know when I went in for surgery if I was coming out of the surgery.
Right.
So I was a little bit younger and put those things together, but I cannot tell you how many people have nothing in place.
Yes.
Nothing.
Yes.
And
I
then it gets to a
understand.
point where even if they have family without directives in place and you have dementia, you can't put directives in place anymore.
No. No.
So it becomes, so I think education early on is key. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, and one of the reasons why we have so many different types of people on this podcast, because I want people to be educated about choices and what's out there to help them get through their journey, their challenges, whatever it might be.
Yes,
That's why I
absolutely.
thought this was important, because it's an alternative to hospice.
Yes,
Hospice does a lot of great things, but there's definitely a need for what you're doing. I mean, I
Absolutely.
recognized
Absolutely.
that myself a few years ago. I thought about it for myself. It just wasn't in the cards for me at the time, working in the type of business that you're in, because I see the importance. I think it's super important.
it is absolutely important. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this, because I want to help as many people as possible not suffer the same way that I did and that my mother did. My mother wanted to die at home, and I didn't know that until it was too late.
Mhm.
And I still, to this day, feel a little bit guilty about that, because we never had that discussion. And it would have been so easy to have. But at that point in time, my main focus was keeping her alive and raising
Right.
my children, and just getting through another doctor's appointment or chemo session or whatever, that it was never really a good time. Even if it's not a good time, it really needs to happen.
Needs to be
Even
discussed.
if you plant the seed.
Right.
So that's what this is about too. Thank you so much for helping me plant
Oh,
these seeds.
Now we
Well,
want
thank
to do
you.
that. So we're almost out of time already, and I have two more quick things. First of all, you're not insurance covered, because people are going to ask that question. Does insurance cover you, or is it only a business where somebody has to pay cash?
I am direct pay. I am not covered by insurance. Maybe someday, but not today.
Not today.
But my service is to help you avoid future costs. If anyone has had to plan a funeral last minute because their loved one passed away, you can spend twice as
Oh,
much
absolutely.
without even blinking. But if you plan things in advance, or you at least have directives in place, even if you don't have a prepaid plan with a local funeral home or something, at least you've given your loved ones a guide to follow. Because when you don't have anything, it just adds up so fast.
And plus, they're dealing with their own grief, and
It's
that's
so
always
hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do I get this? Am I being cheap if I get this over this? Am I doing the right thing for my mother, my father, my loved one? So I
Yes.
think the planning part is super important, so you don't overspend when you really
Right.
don't need to.
Right, right.
majority of
And
the
I mean, it depends on the service that you need me for. My prices start from 35 and go up. So it just depends on what it is that you need help with.
Okay. And if somebody wants to reach you, how do they find you? Where can they look for your website? Are you on social media?
I do have a Facebook page. It is called My Angel Janice, CEOLD, for Certified End-of-Life Doula. My website is www.myangeljanice.com, or you can call or text me at 440-494-6263.
There you go. Well, I think this has been very enlightening for anybody watching this. I hope it is, because I'm very confident a lot of people don't know anything about your business at all. Not one little bit.
Well, and this is the way to start getting the word out and to help people decide and learn that there are other options available to them.
And not to be afraid of it. I mean, that's the other piece. Somebody's there to help you, but not to be afraid of planning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
I hope that this helps your audience to understand that there are other options out there for end of life. And I look forward to hearing from some of them.
Thank you again, Janice.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Melinda.
Take care of yourself today.
I will.